What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about KSeditor. KSeditor is the way on how to texture your things, shade things, and make it look good. So, first off, what we need to do, have your model. So today we'll be working on this wing here. Now, I've already textured this and done all this. So what I'm going to do is just take the wing and the end plates, and we'll just make this. We'll just use this as a example. So we're going to Control I and delete all that. Alright, so we have this wing, and we want to we want to texture this, okay? So we're going to do File, Export, go to, we'll do, put in somewhere, say test. Okay, scale factor 1, don't matter, Y up, hit OK. Alright, so what you're going to do is go to your File Explorer. If you don't already have a shortcut for this, it's going to be in your disk drive, Program Files x86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Assetto Corsa, and then SDK, Editor, and KSeditor. So I made a shortcut. I went right click and then create shortcut. And then what I did is just move this, so I'll cut it. Say if I move this onto my documents right here, paste, then now I can just click on it, and it'll open KSeditor. So that way you don't have to navigate through your whole disk drive every time. You can just go to your shortcut. I already have one made right here, so I am good to go. Alright, so KSeditor is here. Now, this is going to be a basic kind of walkthrough as far as what I know on KSeditor. I know there's going to be a lot of other ways and things to do, but this is just kind of like what I know and just the basics. So, first off, your KSeditor might look more like this really small window. You could, before you import a car, rescale it. So if you try to import something now, right? So let's go ahead and go to our wing. There we go. So it's very hard to see what, you know, what, uh, like it's so small. Uh, Now if you try to resize the window now, it's not bad, but it might get distorted. So what I would do before you import anything, resize it to how you want it to be, something like that. I don't like to do full screen just because sometimes I have other windows next to it in case I need to pull textures and whatnot. So I'll just have it kind of like slightly smaller than full screen. Um, and then let's do this. So first off, you'll want to do File, Open FBX, and then look for your FBX file. So in this case, it was a test. We'll double click that. Going back to this real quick, you want to make sure that the FBX that you're opening has, within that folder, you have a texture folder as well. And then also like a fbx.ini. So those ini files typically come with, like when you unpack a folder, unpack KN5, then you'll get that. So try to have that in there. So with having the texture folder there and the ini, when you load it in, the KSeditor will read those ini settings, the configuration settings, which give you the shader settings, and then also it'll apply the textures for you. Now that we have our object, you'll see that it's just black. How you move, you left click and then move your mouse, arrow keys, so and then you kind of rotate around like this. You can hold shift and move, and this will move at a slower speed. You can scroll wheel to zoom in and out, or actually I think it's like field of view. that is basic controls. What you're seeing on the left side, you'll see the scene tab and also material tab. We'll get into this in a bit. But scene tab, this is pretty much the scene. So within all these drop downs, you can expand it, and then these would be your this this would be like your actual object, the one with the darker blue cube with the orange. I'm not entirely sure on what like these are technically considered, but these are your objects. So if you can't ever find something, you can go through here and look for the object name, and then yeah, you can kind of select that way. I don't really know what these are, and also any of these. I think you can search through here as well. When you click on an object, you can go to this material tab, and this will give you the shader, configurator, the textures, all that. We'll get into this in just a minute. Let me take you to the bottom here, bottom being the object tab. So a lot of times when you have something that's kind of see-through or like windshield glass that's see-through and you can see through the whole car, your is transparent value needs to be turned to true. And yeah, so a lot of times, if you have those issues, people say turn your is transparent to true, and that's what they mean. You always want to have is active and is renderable at true. I really have not seen any situation yet that it's false. So, but you know, what do I know, right? There might be something that could be true or false. I'm not sure. So next to that is the materials tab. So this and this are different tabs. They are named the same, but this material tab up here is more for that exact or for that specific object. This down here shows you all the materials and textures in the whole scene. Similar to the scene, where it shows you all the objects in the scene, the materials tab shows you all the materials and textures in the scene. So this is kind of where you can see red textures, red meaning bad, and you need to put textures in. This meaning that it's missing. So if you click on like this one, right? If you just like click on it, and then go to materials, it'll be there. If you click on, oh yeah, that's right. So I have these set up as one object, or sorry, one material. So it only show up as one material. But once you apply some textures, then it'll apply some textures in here. It'll show up at the bottom. Cameras, I haven't really messed with any of that. I don't know. Illumination, okay. So I currently have mine set to like a blue sky, clear, and then PPFX is default. What you can do, or yours probably looks um like heavy fog, what, black and white, like that. If yours is black and white and like ugly, then you can go weather, clear, load weather, PPFX, you want to do default, and then load PPFX. I mean, you could play with other ones, up to your preference. And then any of these, I have no idea on. Track cameras, these are for like tracks. Animations, this would be if you do an animation inside 3ds or Blender. Batch, no idea. AI, no idea. I'm pretty sure this would be for tracks, car animations. This would be kind of cool. I think this might be for like animated suspensions. QMap, yeah, I mean, people normally don't really, if you're just doing like car modding, you don't really ever have to touch these. Tracks maybe. Now, going up here, view, so the only other, couple other things I want to show and kind of make sure I review is the copy material and paste material. It's pretty self-explanatory. Once you have a set amount of values in here, you can hit copy, and then this will copy the shader values, like literally just the numbers. The all of this will not, it won't like copy that for you, and it also won't copy the textures. It'll only copy and paste the values. That way you don't have to enter it again because we're lazy, you know? Let's go ahead and show you. So say we want to put a material on this so it's not black. We click on these three dots and then we go to my, you can either make a texture. So how we do that, I'll show you. Open up Photoshop, GIMP, Paint.net, I don't know, whatever you can make a PNG or a DDS. I think with the PNG you can pretty much do anything, or you could do it in anything. DDS, you'll need that plugin. If you don't have that plugin, check my last video, I think, on the painting on AO. That will give you the DDS plugin. So with Photoshop open, we do File, New. Let's select like a 4x4, for example, and then like a gray color. We'll hit Create. Okay, so it's gonna be really small. Then we just hit Save As. Let's go to our folder. We'll go into Texture, and then we'll just say Test, right? Now I have my file type preset to DDS, so we're just gonna do DDS. Here the format DXC5 is gonna be highest compression, so it's gonna be the smallest file size. Alpha channel none, that would be used for like carbon. Once you have that saved, go back to KSeditor. So as you see, you're gonna be popping back and forth between KSeditor, other folders, Photoshop. So you don't want to have it like fully expanded. So go to texture and then we'll click on their test. So load in here. It'll show you the compression value, whatever the compression thing, and then the size of the file, and then also how much space that file takes. It'll default to 00000. Obviously that has no shader values. KS per pixel. We'll start with this. So before you do any of these values, you want to set your shader setting. The main ones that you're going to use are going to be, if you're just starting out, you're just going to be using KS per pixel, a KS per pixel multimap, KS per pixel multivap NM detail, KS per pixel NM, UV multi, and reflection. Maybe tires and windscreen if you're doing windshields and tire textures and stuff. All the other ones, I mean, there's like KS flags, somewhere flags, but those are a lot of times for just for tracks and stuff. Because KSeditor you can use it for tracks too. So let's first work with case per pixel. Now, once you select it here, it'll be default selected here. Depth mode, you want to pretty much always have this as edepth normal. I don't, I've never used anything but this, and I've never had to change it, so just keep that there. Blend mode, E-opaque meaning that you can't see through it pretty much. Alpha blend would be allowing you to use the alpha layer that you make in Photoshop. So like here in the alpha 1. So that would be allow you to do so. No, no, scratch that, never mind. No. Alpha blend allows you to do like see-through plastic or see-through what else? Glass, stuff like that. So where you don't want to make it completely transparent, you just want to it allows for like pass through pretty much. Let me just disclose all my descriptions is gonna be very vague, might not be completely accurate, so don't roast me. But KS ambient is gonna be like how much light it emits, maybe. But nothing to do with like light, like reflections, but more of just like how much can we see of the color. His diffuse is gonna be how much you can move the sun right here, move it from like east to west, and that way you can change the reflections and whatnot. So case per pixel is gonna be the most basic shader. This is, as you can see, it's very flat, right? There's obviously no AO, there's no nothing, so it's gonna be very flat. There's no like definition anywhere. So if you're like, oh, why does my shit look like shit? Then it's probably because you're a KSeditor, and also there's no map. Case specular is gonna be how much light. So if I do like 1, right, it's gonna have some reflectivity, I think. And then now you can see the edges. KS specular EXP is gonna be, let's see here, so um, yeah, it's really hard to kind of get good adjustments here when you're on KISS per pixel. And then emissive, this is pretty cool. You can do like if you did like 5 space 5 space 5, then it's pretty much it'll light up whatever color. So I could do like 10, 10, and 10, or like 100, oh, 100 and 100. So bright. Ow. So a lot of people use this for like button boxes, daylight running light, stuff like that. So we're gonna put this back to 0 so I don't burn my eyeballs off. There we go. Alpha ref, I believe I've only used this for like windshields when like to let light come through the windshield and then hit like the dashboard. So that would just be like 1, but I don't think that applies here. Now this R right here is gonna be if you make a change to your texture that's in here, you can hit R and then that will like refresh the texture. It it will keep all of the shaders the same, but it'll just refresh the texture. So R is for reload or for race mode, depending on what you like, you know what I'm saying? As I said before, once we have textures in, it'll show up here. So as you see, it'll show up green because it's in DDS. The game likes DDS files, so it'll say, hey, I'm happy. If you have a PNG, it'll be pink. If you don't have a texture, it'll be red. If it's a JPEG, it'll be yellow. Don't typically want JPEGs. Try to get everything as a PNG or DDS, and if possible, a DDS. Alright, moving on. So KSPixel is the most basic one. Try to not use this one. Try to use at least like reflection. So that'll be the next one. Reflection, it's going to add a couple more layers. But what this allows us to do is to add a Fresnel C, Fresnel EXP, is additive, and Fresnel max level. I don't know a lot about these three. I'm not the biggest expert on those three shaders. So if someone else can chime in, that'd be great. But this allows you to do this one. I believe this is the glossiness, so we could do like 0.5, right? And that'll make it like extremely glossy. Um, but yeah, now it's gonna be now you got the sheen, this reflectivityness. I don't know. Now don't rely on like if you're trying to make something nice and glossy, don't I wouldn't rely on reflection. This is good for also windshields, glass. What else? Anything that's pretty simple, and for like parts like this wing, I wouldn't do reflection. You can make like chrome with this, for example, at a high level. But yeah, that'd be like in the anywhere's up to point 0.6 and or point 0.7 and higher. All these values typically, except the specular exp and then another sun specular exp, all the values will be under 1. So it'd be point something. Sometimes like Fresnel exp, I've seen like a 3 point something, but typically it's under 1. If you go above that, then you might want to like adjust something else. So we're gonna bring this back down to point 0.1. Let's go to KSPixel NM. NM will allow you to add a normal map. So it adds another texture material here. You might be asking, what is a normal map? A normal map is something that tells the game height information or bump. A lot of times you'll see a flat NM. This is literally what it says, flat. So it's nice and smooth. So if you're trying to make glossy carbon, this would be what you want to use. If you're doing like car paint that's like nice and glossy and smooth looking, then you want to use a flat. If you want to do like you can make normal maps. So for example, if I use this normal map that I made for the bolts, it'll kind of make it kind of rough. Now, normal maps are very specific to AO maps, or the mapping of it. Currently, this actually doesn't look too bad because it's just kind of stretched over. But this normal map is designed for the bolts that were on this wing with the swan neck. We're not going to use that. So normal maps are a good tool to use, and a good tool to know how to do. I'll cover on how to make normal maps in the future on another video, but for now, just use flat NM. With this, it doesn't really add too much other space. I think like object space, but these are all kind of with I believe shadows possibly. Again, I haven't really messed with that one at all. So KSPixel NM is a good one. And the next one would be UV multi. So a lot of times you will want to multiply a texture. So say we do this carbon, right? You're like, oh, cool, let's make some carbon. Well, the carbon weave is really big. So how do I, um, make this smaller? You could go in the UV and 3ds Max and go to unwrap UVW, right? And then make it bigger. You make it bigger, and that will pretty much stretch the texture and make the texture smaller. Or you can utilize the fact that this texture is a seamless texture and you can tile it. So if you put it in UV multi, that's UV multiplier. If you go down to diffuse multiplier, the diffuse is always considered like the color or the design, the main star of the show. So diffuse multiplier, if we do like 1, right? 10, 5, maybe like 15. No, a little bit more, 30. So as you can see, it tiles it. It looks pretty nice. Now, obviously, you need to have a map. Make sure you do a good map, or else these types of things won't show up very well. You'll have stretching, you'll have weird, especially with carbon fiber and like carbon Kevlar. Those are very picky textures that you'll want to make sure you have a good map on, and that you won't have weird seams everywhere. The normal multiplier will pretty much act just like the diffuse multiplier. It will multiply the normal map under it, and a lot of times you'll want to make sure that these numbers are the same. But when it's just a flat NM, it's just flat, so there's nothing to multiply. And then we can kind of play with this number. Oh, that's another thing. Make sure your mouse is over here while you're typing. So you see how you can type here, right? But then once you move it over, so I'll be typing, and I'm still typing, but it will stop. So make sure that your mouse is over on this area. I think it can be down here, but once you move out of, oh, okay, you go all the way in here. Okay, so once you go into the viewport, then it stops. Now, even this, it's better, right? You have your normal map. So normal map kind of helps the game know what is the the face of everything, right? Like what is the outward facing. So then it's not thinking that the inside of like this object is the normal face. It just kind of helps make it look better and then help it reflect better against the sun. But next up we have, I show you for reflection, there is Multimap. Okay, so this is going to be the most common one that you'll want to use. Any color, any AO map, um, any just, yeah, color. Main star of the show, right? The normal map is going to be your normal map. The map TX map files. So a lot of people confuse this with like an AO map, right? This is meant for your gloss map, but typically it's one of those green files. I'll show you. It's one of these things. You're like, what the heck? Why is this green? Um, this is this is the gloss map. So where it's white, it's gonna be glossier than where it's green. I know there's like a pink version, there's a purple, there's other colors that are more, people that do more paints and stuff like that know a lot more of, which I do not do, so I don't know of, but I'll make a video on how to make these. But this would be in place for that. We're gonna go ahead and make a proper texture for this, okay? Is we'll just go ahead and make this a carbon wing. What we're gonna do now is make a TX maps. So we're gonna go to our folder that we have the textures in. Now I already have a like an AO map and everything. I'll show you. So this is gonna be the AO map for the wing. Make sure that you have an alpha channel. So it doesn't have to be like on with the eyeball, just has to be there. Make sure RGB is selected. And then save, right? Save as, and then we'll just replace this. Hit yes. Um, Make sure alpha 1 is selected. So if we're doing like carbon, if you're doing like a metal, like brush metal, anything that has some sort of like additional texture on it. You'll want to make sure alpha 1 is selected. We'll hit OK. Go back here. We're going to go ahead and replace this carbon texture here with the AO map. So Voltex carbon fiber. Okay. So this now has the shadows in the crevices, but it's just plain white. So what we're gonna do is go and do TX maps, Voltex carbon fiber map. There we go. So I name it to where I know exactly where it should go. Sometimes I do like AO, sometimes I do normal, NM. Yeah. So we're gonna select the map. So pretty much tells it, okay, where does it need to be glossy? Typically where there's shadows, it won't be glossy, so it'll be more like a dull, but it's kind of hard to see with this white. Okay, so TX detail. Detail is kind of where you put in your carbon, where you put in your metal, where you put in, anything that you want as a detail. So we'll select that, and then we'll just select our carbon fiber texture here. Alright, so at the start, nothing will happen. 0.7, 0.5, KS specular. So now with Multimap, we can get more in depth with kind of reflectiveness. We do like 0.2, or let's try like 1, right? Pretty bright. The specular EXP, we could do like 150. Yeah, and you can just play around with this, do like 0.2. I think this is kind of how much light like reflects off of it. And this is how like concentrated the reflection spot is, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, but you see how kind of like, here, let me turn this down, like point 0.2. Okay. So look look at that spot of light, right? So you have like 1, then it gets stronger, and this EXP, it'll kind of like spread out, so you can like focus the sun reflection more. Just do like 0.2. Sure. Yeah. Just kind of play around with it, different combinations. Fresnel max level could just do like uh, 0.2. 0.2 for now. The next thing what you need to do is to do use detail. So as long as you have an alpha channel and you saved it with alpha and then you have a detail, if you do use detail and you hit 1, if you see it change like shades, and that's good, go down to detail UV multiplier. You can now change get into the values, and this will show up the texture. Look how nice that looks. Wow. So the flat NM, I'll go into more detail in a different video, but the flat NM really gives it that like gloss. We're gonna turn this down a little bit, 0.1. It was a little bit too, like it looked like it had like 20 coats of clear. So it's kind of dark. So what I would do is up this. So like now you can see the sides a little bit better. So Multivap is going to be like the widely used texture for everything, or for by a lot of people. I would recommend using this the most. A lot of times you really don't need to, um, but it does make everything look better just because it has an AO on it, and then it also has your map for your glossiness, your normals. So as you can see, we have our 4 textures here, our material. Okay. Now, once you're like, all right, this is good, then you can go to File, and then what I would do is save persistence. So this will create, it'll do that. This will create something called an INI file. So test.fbx.ini. So it'll make a configuration save file for that FBX that you imported in. So make it like a same name, but .ini. This way, next time you load in, and as long as you open it from this exact file in this location, it'll load in these shader settings so you don't have to redo them again. So very useful. But then we go into save can 5, car, and then, assuming this, if this was like a car, then you would go to your cars, right? Car list, and then now you go and save it. I have my Corolla that I just kind of overwrite. Don't ask me why I picked this car, but I just do that and it'll hit save. Sometimes if you have any red textures, it will stop you from um like it might still say that it's saved, but it'll say before that, it'll say like this texture is missing, there's a null texture or something like that. Let's go to Content Manager. Now that we export out, we can save as KN5, and look how pretty it is. Pretty. Got that shininess, the gloss, more of like a wet carbon or like a glossy carbon, I guess. It's got the shadow because I had the AO that I had, it had with the swan neck, so I'll show that. But yeah, I mean, let's use it as an example. With Multimap, you're utilizing the AO map and then also this carbon detail together, and that way you can create a nice product. But you click it, and then now you have your values. Here you can change the values here as well. Now I would try to avoid changing values in here. Sometimes it screws it up, and like if just keep KSeditor open, and that way you can come back in here. Say you're like, oh, I want this to be like brighter, 0.8, 0.7, and then you go in. I would always save persistence, and then you save can5, and then you overwrite, right? Boom, and you go back in here, and then now it's brighter. So keep KSeditor open while you're kind of experimenting. That we can go back and forth quickly. Another thing, last thing that I'll go over today is the utilities and texture review. So a lot of time people don't utilize this and they end up having a giant KN5 um, because they have so many unused textures. So for this swing, because like before I had the swan neck, the bolts and everything, so I had all these textures, but I didn't use any of that today, so it's going to be in this right side. So on the left side is going to be all the textures that are used, that are currently in the scene and that are being utilized. You'll see the size of the file, the width and height, the dimensions of the texture, the compression format, um, and then MIP files that I have no idea on what those mean, but that's there. And then the total size of like all your textures total, and then any other types of files. So PNG, JPEG, it'll highlight in red, like on here, and then it'll show up here. So, as I said, the game likes DDS, so just, yeah, try to do DDS. This right side here is all the unnecessary textures that we don't need and that we don't use. So we go Control A and move selected and backup folder. So what this is gonna do is create this folder and move everything into here on its own. So only leave the ones that you're using here. Okay. It won't delete it, it'll just move it here. So which is nice actually. Okay, so now that you have that, then you can exit. Now you save as KN5. I would try to get in the habit of just checking this real quick before you finish out, and then just kind of go through textures, whatnot, and then save as KN5. That'll pretty much do it for the basic KSeditor tutorial. Some people have been asking on how the heck do I use this, and that's pretty much how. Yeah. Alright, well, thanks for watching everybody. That was our basic tutorial on how to use KSeditor. You're gonna probably hate it.
It's gonna be the most tedious thing ever. Some might love it because it's very like satisfying when you can get it right. Let me know if you have any questions and hop in my Discord. A lot of people in my Discord are very helpful. They can help you out. I'll try to help out, but stay tuned for more videos on like normal maps and stuff like that. So see ya. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is the final product of the Voltex Swan Wing with the carbon and high quality textures made in Substance. If you'd like to download this, go over to my Patreon, subscribe, and these will all be available in my Discord in a very special channel. So go ahead and check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. Please join the Discord and have a good rest of your day. Peace.